What is going on at USC? Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, breaking down the Trojans. We've got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles. Matt, how you doing this afternoon?
Doing pretty good. Thanks, Mark. How are you doing?
Doing just fine. Of course, if you like what we do, you smash the like button, subscribe, share the videos, and that helps build and promote the channel and keeps us going and delivering the best in college football discussion, debate, and analysis. Matt, you got a football team there with one of the big national brands, but maybe one of the rougher in seasons and off seasons that we've seen in decades. Coming off 5-7, losing an offensive coordinator, losing a bunch of top flight recruits, and a situation that wasn't the best in terms of PR relations out there.
Yeah, it's been, I guess you could say, dysfunction over at USC for the past month. As everyone knows, as you mentioned, with the 5-7 season, USC clearing its coaching staff and building up and getting a new coaching staff, on top of keeping Clay Helton. USC's just been in a weird state, if I could say. It starts with losing Cliff Kingsbury, who was there for only a month, only to take off for the NFL. And in terms of the whole buyout situation, which that's been criticized because of the very low buyout that USC plays for Kingsbury. Not to mention, USC's been losing a lot of top-notch recruits. Brew McCoy, their five-star athlete, who committed during the All-American game and enrolled, actually signed his letter of intent already and enrolled only 2 weeks later to transfer to Texas, which was another choice of his, and willing to sit a year out just to transfer. And then last night, they lost long time commit Puka Nakua, 4-star wide receiver out of Orem, Utah. He committed and flipped his commit to the Huskies, to the Washington Huskies last night. So a lot of people don't know what's going on with USC, and recently they just lost Coy Moore, who was a 4-star wide receiver in the 2020 recruiting class. So people are trying to figure out what's happening with USC. It's just been a lot of dysfunction and just a lot of uncertainty around that program.
It must be kind of like the stock market. So even when the vitals and the fundamentals and the true real indicators in the stock market are good, if one or two things go bad and everybody starts to bail, and then everybody plays off of the sky is falling theory. And so you got a 5-7 football team that did not obviously play anywhere close to standards. And then you got Clay Helton, who a lot of people don't have much confidence in overall in leading this kind of program.
Right.
And then you have the Cliff Kingsbury situation, which of course he's going to go take an NFL head coaching job. Uh, Anyone would. Uh,
Right.
so now we've got a class that, by measurements that just about any school in the country would take, was a good recruiting class in 2019, but USC, Ohio State, Alabama, Michigan, Clemson, those schools want to be in the top 5 to top 10 and bring in that type of athlete and that many of those type of 5 and 4 star athletes in a number 20 recruiting class, and for what is supposed to be the dominant program in the Pac-12 at number 3 in the recruiting wars against Washington and everyone else, substandard.
Yes, and typically we're used to seeing USC in the on top of the Pac-12 recruiting rankings, as well as finishing in the top 10, top 5 in recruiting. I think with the 2019 class, it was a solid class, but as you mentioned, USC's up there with the Ohio State, Alabama, Texas, and Michigan's of the world, and that's not acceptable to USC standards, especially if you're at USC and you have all this talent in California and on the West Coast. But given the amount of uncertainty at USC, on top of the coaching changes that took place, this was a result of that of all of that's happened. You get a third ranking in the Pac-12 in recruiting. You get a 20th ranking in national recruiting. I just think USC, with the amount of coaching changes in a short span of time, it only hurt the Trojans. Now for next year, who knows what could happen? I mean, they still have Bryce Young, who is still committed to USC, but seeing how this year went, things could change. You never know what could happen come next year.
We got Matt Lowry on the line from Conquest Chronicles covering USC football. Join him and the rest of the staff right there. 25 signed in 2019 is 16 from the state of California. And so we'll take the positive approach. Obviously, there's a lot of good to talk about in the class. Who do you like, Matt?
Well, I really like Kyle Ford out of Orange Lutheran. Now, the thing with Ford right now is he is still rehabbing a torn ACL, I believe, after an injury during his senior season at Orange Lutheran. But Clay Helton said that he could return in August, so we'll wait and see there. But he is a phenomenal receiver. Another guy who I like in this class is Max Williams, defensive back out of Sarah. If you know USC and you know Sarah High School out of Gardena, you know the amount of talent that has come through those two schools. I mean, we're talking to Dory Jackson, Robert Woods, Marquise Lee, Rasheem Green. I think Max Williams could be the next upper echelon guy in that Sarah to USC connection. Not to mention Ethan Ray and Jed Wolf, the two 4-star tight ends that are coming into this class, who are very, very how can I put this? They're very good in terms of red zone production, something that USC struggled with last season. So adding more red zone targets, for JT Daniels and for the USC offense, it's only going to be nothing but a positive for them. So I like this class because it wasn't the class that people expected, but they still have some solid guys in there that could produce right away, or the coaching staff can coach them up and can help them develop into something.
And the red zone issues weren't necessarily a big surprise in 2019 or 2018, I should say, with a young quarterback in JT Daniels. But they even struggled in the red zone the year before with Sam Darnold at quarterback, Michael Pittman, and Deontay Burnett, quality wide receivers, and a plethora of experience in the backfield with Ronald Jones in particular, and even struggled there. So you got to kind of call into question the scheme, the approach, and the play calling when you struggle with that kind of talent and that kind of experience in the red zone. But we'll see what they have in store with Graham Harrell as the offensive coordinator this year. Before we move to that, Matt, let's look at the 2020 class. Obviously, there's not much to talk about in regards to guys committed, but in terms of guys that are out there that you believe USC will have a strong say into their decision. It's a class right now rated 31st in the country. That doesn't mean a whole lot, but they're obviously not off to a great start. But who's out there, and where do you see this 2020 class going?
I think for the 2020 class, the first thing that they got to approach is wide receiver. And as I mentioned, they lost Coy Moore, who committed out of Louisiana, and now he decommitted, I want to say about 2 weeks ago, due to the coaching changes. So I think what they have to do right now is they have to look at what's out there for wide receiver. Now, I don't know per se who's out there at wide receiver, but I do know there's some quality wide receivers in California that they have to try and target. that they have to keep home. Another thing too, and I think the main thing that they have to think about doing is try to keep a relationship with Bryce Young. I think that's the most important piece of the 2020 class. Yes, while USC has JT Daniels there, they need to start thinking ahead, and they need to start thinking what happens if JT Daniels has another bad year or struggles again in 2019. Bryce Young, who is currently at Mater Dei, outstanding. He's an outstanding prospect. I think you have to do whatever you can to hold on to him because he's going to be the key piece of the 2020 recruiting class. If you can hold on to him, I think they can lure other key prospects in that 2020 class for next season.
Talking USC football. If you like what we do here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, please like, comment, subscribe, share the videos. And of course, that will help build the channel and keep us around delivering the best in college football discussion, debate, and analysis. Talking USC with Matt Lowry from Conquest Chronicles. We've diced up the 2019 and 2020 classes. It's odd that in losing Cliff Kingsbury as offensive coordinator in a very strange situation in which he gains the head coaching job at Arizona in the NFL, despite having a losing record as a college coach, that Graham Harrell, another Texas Tech quarterback, then becomes the offensive coordinator, much the same style in regards to what he played and coached in there at Texas Tech and elsewhere. Your thoughts about Graham Harrell?
I like Graham Harrell. I believe he's somebody that the Trojans needed. You get a young head coach, but you get a young offensive coordinator who's done great things at North Texas. Again, he's a quarterback himself. You saw what he did with Mason Fine, who currently is on target to become one of North Texas' best quarterback in program history. He has a 50-20 QB rating, or 50 touchdown and 20 interception QB rating, or QB ratio, actually, going into this season. I think with Harrell, he's just what USC needs because now you get a guy who is innovative with his offenses. Somebody who, like Cliff Kingsbury, though he don't have the experience like Cliff Kingsbury, he can put points on the board. He can move the ball. I know you mentioned the red zone production with USC last season and even 2 seasons ago with Sam Darnold. I think this answers those questions in terms of the red zone. USC, I think at this rate, we know USC is fully embracing the air raid offense per se, although Clay Helton says it's not going to be a full-on air raid, which I don't believe to an extent. I don't believe, but I think Graham Harrell will do great things with USC. And not only that, but the longevity of the whole thing. We knew Cliff Kingsbury was probably going to be gone after this season, given how he did with USC. But before we got that chance, he already took the Arizona head coaching job. I think Graham Harrell will end up being there for more than one season. I think maybe 2 or 3 seasons at best. But I think he will breathe a breath of fresh air into this USC offense, something that they desperately needed.
And it seems to be something that Clay Helton will desperately need if he wants to keep a job. I don't know what Lynn Swann is thinking in regards to what the bar needs to be with the standard of maybe a division championship, maybe a certain win total, what he needs to see to keep Clay Helton around. And of course, although USC is disappointed on the national stage against the likes of USC and against Ohio State and Notre Dame the previous season after winning the Rose Bowl the first year, it's just the one down year. And it was somewhat expected, but maybe not to the 5-7 degree. I was thinking 8-4 last year for the Trojans, but they will need to crank up the offense. Your thoughts about Clay Helton's coaching performance and what he needs to do this year to stay at USC?
I think with Helton, he just needs to show the ability to develop players, because USC has had an issue developing players the last 2 seasons. I think that was the biggest knock when Sam Darnold was there, was what were they doing to develop him and to utilize him correctly. So the coaching ability and developing players is one. The discipline is another. USC committing a handful of penalties last season that cost them games, and I do know of one of, how can I put it, the penalty that cost them the Cal game, the penalty that lost them the Cal game on when it was clearly third down and the Bears were about to punt with the chance to get the ball back and to take the lead. I think that's another, and also practices too. USC has not shown proper, I don't want to say proper, but practice habits that show that they're prepared for games. The lack of tackling in practices, the lack of discipline, of getting the discipline straight, the lack of game planning, the lack of adjustments. All those things are what played to USC's downfall, especially last season. You could see it in games where they led against Texas. They had a two score lead against Texas, a 2 score lead against Utah. A 2 score lead against Notre Dame and against UCLA. These were games, winnable games, that they squandered away and ended up getting blown out. These are things that have to change in 2019 if Helton wants to keep his job. If he struggles against Fresno State, Stanford, BYU, and Washington and Utah, he may be gone by week 5 or before that Utah game if things don't straighten up.
All right. If you like what we do here at Mark Rogers TV, the voice of college football, which is bring you the best discussion, debate, and analysis across the nation with the best writers, bloggers, broadcasters like Matt Lowry here at Conquest Chronicles, then you smash the like button. You, of course, subscribe and share the video to keep us going. Matt, we appreciate the take on USC. Would love to have you back sometime.
Thank you for having me on. I appreciate it, Mark.